The Civil War, North and South, Part 3. Those Confederate deserters, they were not pro-Union, but they sure did the Union a big favor. Without deserters causing problems behind Confederate lines, the North might not have won the war. Poor white Southerners felt it was a rich man's war and a poor man's fight. That perception proved costly to the Confederacy. The poor were asked to carry a disproportionate burden of the war's costs. Many carried it, but many refused. Now, if you take the internal opposition of the poor whites, and add to that the internal opposition of the 4 million enslaved people in the South, because of emancipation, well, there's a major reason for Confederate defeat. So that's an internal explanation of the war's outcome that is valid. What the South did wrong to lose the war. Now, if the South went to war to protect a way of life based on slavery, it's also true the North went to war to protect a way of life. The North went to war to protect equality of opportunity. Equality of opportunity for all white people that was threatened by the spread of slavery west. We talked about how Lincoln was a great leader because he timed and justified emancipation so well. Well, another key to Lincoln's greatness as a president was his ability to articulate to Northerners what the war was about, what they were fighting for. That is, Lincoln was a great communicator. Lincoln was able to explain to the Northern people what they were fighting for in a way that they could relate to and unite behind. Lincoln inspired Northerners to sacrifice by explaining what it meant to save the Union. Lincoln's first theme was that the war was a great test of whether the American experiment in Republican government would succeed or fail. Can democracy work? Can man govern himself by majority rule or not? If the minority can pack up and leave whenever they lose an election, then democracy has failed. Lincoln argued that since the U.S. was the world's only republic, the future of mankind was at stake. If the U.S. failed, then democracy fails, for all people, for all nations, for all time. As Lincoln put it, quote, "America was the world's last best hope among nations." Lincoln stated this theme most eloquently at Gettysburg, in his famous Gettysburg Address, where he argued that the North needed to win to ensure that, quote, "government of the people, by the people, and for the people shall not perish from the earth." Now that's a cause worth fighting for, and maybe even dying for. You know, if there's such a thing as a good war and a good cause, that's what the North fought for in the Civil War. Lincoln's other theme was that the war was, quote, "a people's contest." It was a war for all Northerners, no matter how rich or poor, no matter if you're black or white, everybody benefits from a free society. It's a war to preserve the American dream. A war to preserve a land of opportunity, where any man can get ahead through hard work, talent, and merit. Because that's what a free society is, unlike a slave society. Lincoln emphasized that all Northerners would benefit from Union victory. Rich, poor, black, white. Most Northerners believed Lincoln's message, and so they paid the price to win. Even racist whites, who opposed emancipation, could rally behind Lincoln's cause. Even African Americans who knew the North was racist could rally behind Lincoln. The war still had something for them. I think the North poses a sharp contrast to the South. The free labor ideology united the North. The slave labor ideology divided the South. In the North, rich and poor pulled together to win. In the South, rich and poor fought against each other to lose. In the North, black and white pulled together to win. In the South, black and white fought with each other, against each other, to lose. I can't put it any more simple than that. The North had a cause that united it, rich and poor, black and white. We fight for freedom, for opportunity, for democracy. We fight to save the American experiment in Republican government. That's an external explanation of the war's outcome that is valid. The South, on the other hand, had a cause that divided it, rich against poor, black against white. We fight for aristocracy and slavery. That's an internal explanation that is valid. I think if you understand that, I think you understand why the North won and the South lost the Civil War. Now I want to elaborate for just a moment on presidential leadership. The North had superior presidential leadership. That's an external explanation of the war's outcome that is valid. The South had inferior presidential leadership. That's an internal explanation of the war's outcome that is valid. President Lincoln was a great communicator. He delivered the two greatest speeches perhaps in American history, the Gettysburg Address and the Second Inaugural Address. Confederate President Jefferson Davis, no great speeches. Lincoln was a revolutionary who could think outside the box. Witness the Emancipation Proclamation. Jefferson Davis, not so much. Lincoln could admit that he was wrong. Davis would rather win an argument than lose the war, win an argument than win the war. Lincoln surrounded himself with men who hated him. His cabinet was known as the team of rivals because those men were competent. Jefferson Davis surrounded himself with yes men. Lincoln knew how to focus on the big picture and delegate the little stuff to his subordinates. Davis, on the other hand, was a micromanager who got lost in the details. Ironically, based on his resume, Jefferson Davis should have been a better president and a better commander-in-chief. Davis had a ton of military experience. He went to West Point. He fought in the Mexican War. He served as Secretary of War. Davis had tons of executive experience. He served in the presidential cabinet. Jefferson Davis had a ton of Washington, D.C. experience. He served in the United States Senate. Lincoln, on the other hand, when he took office, no executive experience whatsoever, absolutely zero. Very little military experience, and very little Washington, D.C. experience. And then Lincoln turns out to be the better president and the better commander-in-chief. Who knew? Presidential leadership is so important that some historians have played counterfactual history here. And what they've done is posed a scenario where you take the two presidents, Lincoln for the North and Davis for the South, and just trade them, flip-flop them. And in that counterfactual scenario, give Lincoln to the South, Davis to the North. Historians have speculated that with Lincoln, as president, the South would have won the war. The bottom line, the North had superior presidential leadership. That is an external explanation of the war's outcome that is valid. The South had inferior presidential leadership. That is an internal explanation of the war's outcome that is valid.